Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for attending the second session of our Masters of Conversion series, where you get to learn from the masterminds of winning website experiences. My name is Vipul, and I lead co-marketing for VWO, a full funnel experience optimization platform. Our Master of Conversion for tonight is an ex-Google and ex-Adobe optimization expert and is currently the head of optimization at HSBC. Of course, it needs no introduction. HSBC is one of the world's largest financial and banking organizations. So let us all welcome Sigi. Hey Sigi, thank you so much for sharing your expertise with our audience today.
Hi Vipul. No, it's a pleasure. Thank you for inviting me along to the VWO event, and thank you to the people who've dialed in. Yes, we're going to spend aiming for about 40 minutes talking through some of the stuff that
It's a pleasure to have you, Sigi, as well. So before I actually give the mic to you, I just wanted to also inform people that we will be having a 10-minute question and answer section at the end of this presentation, right? So if you have any questions, and I'm sure you will have tons of them, so I encourage you all to send them using the questions panel, right? And yeah, I think with that, Sigi, the stage is all yours.
Cool, thank you. A little bit keen earlier. Thank you for the scene setting. Yeah, so as Vipul said, I mean, my previous companies have been Google and Adobe, and more recently now heading for a couple of weeks away from having spent 4 years at HSBC. For me, the exciting part in taking a role with HSBC is a few reasons. One of them obviously being the size of the company, but probably the biggest draw really was the fact that this was a bank that, despite its size and prominence in so many markets, had never done any optimization previously. So where I then was in my career, I thought that this is probably the only chance that I'll ever get of being part of setting up something brand new in a company as big as HSBC. So yeah, which took me the role there. So what we're going to talk through today is a little bit about our approach to optimization. And you can see from the title that was already shared in the email with the crawl, walk, run, and the sort of subtitle here of building blocks and child's play, is that I firmly believe that optimization is not necessarily the work of geniuses, but I think we need not to be experts in anything, but following a process. It might be a little bit, sound a bit weird to you all, but I firmly believe that. So as we go through this this presentation now, it will just show you a little bit of the journey that we've had at HSBC in terms of the optimization journey, and then we'll go through our testing framework, which is we've named crawl, walk, run. We will look a little bit also at team structure and roles and optimization building blocks. So as I alluded to already, it started 4 years ago. There was no optimization team, as I said. There was a little bit, they had a third-party provider that also came with some servicing hours. So they did a handful of tests, but it was more using a testing tool as a glorified image server, as far as I'm concerned. And the website was just a basic standard brochure website, nothing exciting. You could possibly argue that still it's not particularly exciting when you compare to some of the exciting stuff that other banks and financial services are doing currently. There's the scene of the challenger banks coming up against our big established banks. HSBC has been around for more than 150 years. So it's not a place where change happens quickly. And this was also some of the concerns that I had when I took the job, is that my perception of financial services institutions was that we would struggle hard to make any kind of changes. We would be drowning in political games and people very keen on holding on to the little ownerships within the company. But we found it to be quite different. So Optimisation kicked off in 2016. It came basically off of the back of HSBC globally making the decision to commit to upping the game in terms of digital. Optimization hadn't happened there before. It was my job to hire the optimization team and build it up and get on the map and front of mind of people within the organization. There was politics to sort out, but we were lucky in that nobody had anything to compare us against, and optimization didn't happen previously. We got some very good internal sponsors, basically just put their arm around us and said, just start testing. And if anyone comes ask what on earth you're doing, then have them come speak to me. And also in true textbook style, some of the early wins we had from tests really tore down the walls that we were facing. So for us, where I thought it would be a challenge getting optimization up and running in the financial service industry, I was very pleasantly surprised that it was a lot easier than we reckoned. I've said previously that, you know, if we were at a stage in month 2 or 3 where I thought it would probably take us 2 to 3 years to get it. So that was quite fortunate. One thing that I think has been the main key to, if in my words, the success of the optimization at HSBC is that we basically, as the bullet point says on the screen, that we are our own entity. And what I mean by that is that prior to joining HSBC, I was optimization consultant with Adobe, and what I tended to see most of all from about the 30 biggest companies in the UK is that you would have either optimization sits in under marketing team, or you would have optimization sit in under the product team. I was lucky enough to get my way, and basically optimization is our own entity. We work with marketing, we work with product, but we are not dictated to, because my main concern, as I've seen in other places, is that optimization was just seen as a tool set of marketing or of product. And so in this case, we're very lucky to get the agreement on that as well. With the autonomy given to us and the trust that given to us and the fact that we sat as our own entity, it meant that we could do a lot of fun stuff very, very quickly, and people trusted us. So for me, it was a key to uphold that trust, that we were really doing things by the book and measured. So part of that was forming our own optimization framework, which we will touch upon, but it was also being very transparent with what we do and working with all the teams internally that needed to be feeling a little bit safer, a little bit more safe about what optimization is. I still attend meetings internally where I have to explain what optimization is, where I have to reassure people that if we are targeting audiences based on a certain trait, then only those people will actually see this content as opposed to everybody. So it's a mindset and an education piece that needs to happen. So after year 1, as you can see from the test, we went to 0 to 120 tests in year 1. We went from 0 team members to 7 team members. And we then, so this introduces the framework that I'm wanting to talk about. So here you can see it's a slide covering the first part of this testing framework. So this is the crawl phase. Some of you on the call will have children, some of you will have cousins, but all of you have been a baby at some stage. You will have learned to crawl, you would have learned to walk, and you would eventually have learned to run. And figuratively or literally. And this is the approach that we took as well. So for us, it was very important just to do this slowly, to get people with us on this journey, to create that excitement as well, and making people feel part of it. And as I said earlier, also that they trusted us. So objectives early on was just to really establish governance and a culture and an openness around what we were doing, so that people would let us do the things things that we wanted to do. And obviously my key thing is to enable the optimization team members to do their job. And myself, being the manager, I see it as my key role to enable the people in my team to do their job. We'll get back to this a little bit later. So what is the crawl phase? For me, the key parts of the crawl phase, if any other listeners are from England or countries that you would have the same. In England, to have a car on the road and be allowed to drive it, you have to take it to a test every year. In England, it's called the MOT. So it's a 76 checklist item that ensures that your car is roadworthy. I compare that very often to the crawl phase because we do a range of tests, basically making sure that the web pages are roadworthy. So in the lower box there, you can see under approach, that's basically the way that we tackle every page and also key journey. So we'll typically start with, if me and you guys on the call now was starting an optimization team in a new company, we would sit down and we will basically look at the key pages and look at exclusion testing. This is to verify whether or not an element is needed for that particular type of page. Often you will find that there are elements of the page that means nothing to the visitors. So what we advocate then is just removing it and making sure that we surface this in the right place. So exclusion testing is basically looking at which elements are needed for the particular pages. If they are needed, then we go on and do other tests. If they're not needed, we just scrap them. So the next phase in our little roadworthiness approach is positioning. So if we've established that an element should be on the page, then we do a few tests to see whether or not the elements are placed correctly on the page. Is there a right-hand border, left-hand border, below the fold, above the fold? Just basically try and understand what sort of visually, hierarchically makes sense for our visitors to interact with that element. Once we've found the right position for it, we tend to look at the presentation of it. Is the appearance of the elements optimized? So that could be, has it got images to it? We've tested often having a little bit of a background color on forms and calculators. Calculators in particular, because we find that if we get somebody interacting with a calculator, they are much more likely to apply for a credit card or apply for a loan, etc., etc. So that's presentation. So we then look at function. So is that the element behaving as they should? Should it be linked to a href further down the page? Should it be a pop-up menu? Should it be an accordion? Should it go to a completely new page? What should happen? So then we test if those elements are behaving as they should. And copy, obviously, is the copy relevant for the page, but also is the copy relevant for what that element wants you to have visitors doing? I'm sure most of you at least will agree that if you get to a web page and you actually have to think about what you should be doing as a next move, then it's a lot easier to just abandon and go to a competitor. You'll see a couple of quotes as well in this presentation, and I quite like this one, and I'll get back to it a little bit later. But for me, the main thing for optimization is really to find insights, to get learning from how visitors interact with your page. Hopefully, that in the longer run, you will learn to improve the pages so that your company would benefit financially, your customers would be happy, it's more personal, it's more relevant, it's more easy for them to do, to move around on your site and achieve what they want to do. But so that quote there is quite key for me. So next page. So I will go through each of the three phases, and I will give. I'm very transparent. These are real examples from what we have done, and this is basically landing pages from paid media. So what this graph is showing to you is that these are a series of 7. There's meant to be 8, but we did 8 tests in a series on landing pages. So all following the crawl phase. So one of this will be removing the navigation bar, the menu from the landing page, and there would be various bits and tweaks of all the campaigns. So you can see that each one of the tests contributed to an uplift in the performance of it. So this is the crawl phase. This is us making sure that in this case, landing pages are roadworthy. And what was quite fun to see, and to be honest, I haven't seen too often, is that once we put all the, in this case, 8 changes or test winners on one page and put that live, then we saw a total uplift of nearly exactly what the cumulative wins was from the individual test. So we then saw, after the series of tests, we had an uplift of 115% in application starts as a result of this series of tests. So that's a use case from crawl phase. Moving on, I can also say that typically from present experience with HSBC and previous experience, the crawl phase and any kind of sort of medium to large company will typically take between 8 and 14 months. Obviously, traffic comes into it, complexity of pages, etc., whatever issues that you have. So the crawl phase typically takes between 8 and 14 months in my experience. It's not set in stone, and it's hard to also know when you move from the one to the next. We can touch on that later on, but I'll explain to you exactly what the walk phase is. So this is us then having done in our 3rd year of optimizing, it will be the end of the 2nd year, so 2017, we had upped the game from 112 to 480 tests. We had more than doubled the team size. The doubling of the team size came when we shared the internal results of the impact we'd had in year 1. So I then had a very much a banker's question saying, if we double the team size, would we double revenue? I said it wasn't as simple as that. So what we did is we and some others in my team, we went away, not literally, we took that away, and we really had a review of the entire web pages that we had to test on, and looked at page views and effectively looked at what we could possibly, how many tests we could possibly run at a maximum. Given a 2 to 6 weeks testing period, X pages, etc. So we came through to a mathematical answer or an algorithmic answer to what the team size should be for the situation that we were in. So that gave a result of 480 tests. Most of you would probably already guess that the design of this page is meant to continue this hockey stick upwards. So I just really want to say that I am not saying that the amount of tests, the quantity of tests is not in any particular way showing the quality of it. But it was more also why I included the quote about insight. That insight is the key thing. And you get a lot more insight from 480 tests than you do from 48 tests. So I'm not saying this isn't bragging about amounts of tests, but it's me proving that we sort of eat our own dog food in doing what we preach. So testing is about insights, and we are doing what we can to grow that. So whereas the first year and the roadworthiness approach to testing, what we would then doing is moving beyond the low-hanging fruit, as it says here. We then had firmly established a governance and culture. The targets that, to be fair, we set ourselves at the start of the optimization team, but they were quickly shot out of the park. So then we were asked to double the team, which I said that we were doing. We also, in year 2, established an internal learning hub. So by internal learning hub is essentially around the transparency and trust that I've talked about a little bit earlier. On the learning hub and other things we do is there to have that transparency, and also to give every employee of HSBC the insight into what we are testing. what tests we've done, why we did them. So the problem statement, the hypothesis framework is all there. The results are all there. The screenshot of what we did. There's a little write-up of what we're doing next. We have that internally available at HSBC for everybody in the company to go and look at. You can filter to some degree by product, by test type, etc. But it's quite a nice way to help markets onboard to optimization. When I say markets in this case, I maybe should just say that for us, my main area that I look after, I'm based in EMEA, so I predominantly look after Europe, Middle East, and Northern Africa. But 90% of the work, 90% of traffic and revenue comes from UK. So size-wise, they're just a much bigger piece of the pie than some of the other markets. But we're still helping every market. So obviously, not every market can have tests on all pages. Some of the smaller markets, it's really just the home page and the logged out page that we can test on. Yeah, I'll get back to that a little bit as well. But for us, the transparency around what we were doing and the results of what we were doing was crucial to have there. We started a little bit, as I mentioned earlier, our main sponsor just said start testing, and if anyone asks what you're doing, etc., then come to me. Then so a lot of the tests we did, and being also that we were set up as an independent entity, meant that we did, for example, for credit cards, we probably did a dozen or so tests before we even introduced ourselves to the credit card team. And they haven't had an issue, and neither has any of the other teams as well, because they see the benefits that is there by cooperating with us. So this is the walk phase. So we're now, whereas the roadworthiness aspect of this was pretty much around a heuristic approach. What are we seeing elsewhere? What are our competitors doing? What are visitors expecting websites to be? Also at the start, alongside the efforts HSBC had on optimization, there was also the birth. And it sounds odd, but that's also when analytics really came into play at the bank as well. So you could argue that the first year that we tackled optimization, that we had data, but we didn't really trust much in the data. So we then, through the 400 odd tests that we were doing, were just sort of learning about segmentation, learning about behavior, etc., etc. But now, as analytics is more present and more vetted and trustworthy, we're using that more and more. The tools that we had might be no surprise, having come from Adobe. That, I mean, I didn't choose the tools, but that's what I'm most familiar with. I'm also a firm believer that it's not really the tool set that determines what you get out of optimization. In my case, it's more how you actually use it. So this is just an example. This is just highlighting the sort of stack that we are using there. In terms of approach in the walk phase, we're now leaning more on segmentation. This is based on the 400 and more tests that we've done. We also obviously accumulated learning from that. So we would understand that there are differences from new to bank visitors versus existing to bank customers. There would be differences in whatever products you had. There we have premier customers, we have mass customers, etc., etc. So we are doing segmentation more in the walk phase, but you can guess at the run phase, already guess at the run phase will utilize it more. So it's also looking at full utilization of customer data. So this is to try and understand, how small segments can we break experiences down to, or banners down to, or content down to, before the effort outweighs the returns of what we're doing. So in that regards, we were sort of in this walk phase as well, starting to utilize automated personalization more. So what is automated personalization? For me, that is more around the machine learning aspect that testing tools can provide for you. And basically, saving you a lot of time by doing a lot of the heavy lifting for you. So we have automated campaigns, for example, on banners on the homepage, where the tool will learn by itself what customers are doing, and based on their traits, serve up the right content for them. We're also moving gradually now also into authenticated space. So authenticated space is where you log in to do your banking transactions and your interactions. So obviously for us, authenticated space is two things. It is a lot more dangerous to do any slip-ups. So that's the main thing. The other thing that also the thing that makes it exciting is that obviously at this phase we know a lot more about customer behavior, the habits, what they tend to do when they log into the banking, and maybe other informations like if they browsed any other products, etc., etc. So that essentially is the walk phase. You can see I've added another quote here, which is part what of my introduction was as well. It is more about process. When I go to meetings with new teams and they're a little bit worried that we can just change the products or the campaigns upside down, then I typically say that the optimization team is experts in nothing but following a process. We might be, individual levels, we might have strong expertise in areas, but that's not predominantly why we're there for. We're not there to give opinions. We're trying to get it data driven and making sure that tests are set up correctly, giving us the answers or validations that we are looking for. So another use case, then this time for the walk phase. So this is essentially showing an automated personalization test. So here now you can see there's 3 data sources for this spreadsheet. The gray line is impressions. They're all, the banners. So these are impressions of the various types of banners. There might be more than one banner for a product, but these are what's showing. So the blue bars are indicating the click-through rates of when people are not served targeted content. So this could be, for all of us on the call here, we all got a loans banner. Some of us might need a loan, but most of us probably won't be needing a loan at the minute or indeed wanting one. So this is just quickly showing the power of automated personalization in that this takes hardly any time to set up. Balancing this approach, the automated approach, up against sort of a long tail or indeed segmentation approach, makes things quite challenging in my view. For example, what we did find is that most people would probably think that if a customer did not have a savings account with us, then we should try and tell them about our savings account. But truth of the matter, and if you spend another minute thinking about it, you're more likely to find that people who didn't have savings accounts are more likely to be wanting the hands-on cash. So this is part of the insight that this automated personalization does. So for me, it's not just a brilliant tool to present content or to publish content, but it's also a brilliant tool of getting this insight back. So this is where things are starting to get a little bit crazy. So in the year of 2018, we did just over 1,200 tests, and our team was still the same size that we had previously. So this is now fully embracing segmentation and gradually also start looking at long tail approaches. But as I've pointed out earlier, we are also very much into automated optimization approach. Again, to some of you, maybe 1,200 sounds like a lot. It is not. It is just there again for the insights, as you can see, because where the number will go down. So moving from walk to run. So now we're now in our third year, when I would argue that we're running now for most of our activities. Obviously, saying that we're in the run phase now doesn't exclude the activities done in crawl and walk, but we are predominantly having a run mindset in our activities. And that, for me, is really to establish a best in breed approach to optimization. That is partly why I'm doing this call now, because I like sharing things, because I think through sharing is how people grow. And you know, maybe one or some of you will reach out of the call, reach out to me after the call, and it's sort of like networking. Although I'm sitting in a cold shed in the back of my garden in London, it's a way of reaching out to people, and we aim to truly become an optimization organization. I think a lot of people have different interpretation of what they would read into what an optimization organization is, but for me, the key thing around that is essentially that the whole of your business has got optimization front of mind. So what I ask for if I go to meetings and stuff, and we're not yet to be honest with you, but I don't want, in my world, I don't want any new content to go on the website without being tested. If we want to update an image or change it for whatever reason, I want it to be a data-driven approach to understanding why you make those changes. Failing that, at least let's make sure that we are testing the new content versus the old content. Again, as I've highlighted many times, to get that insight from running our activity. So this now in the run phase is fully optimized, automated optimization and personalization. This touches on trigger points, etc. Won't go into too much details, but it's as you can imagine, with a team of that size working on one website for 4 years, we have turned a lot of stones. I also said earlier that I personally don't think that we got a particularly good website, which is maybe an odd thing to say, but I think testing can only bring you so much. And to a certain page, that website has to evolve into something new, and that's a much bigger task and will involve a lot more teams than what optimization is presently able to affect. But there are positive moves for evolving that. Yeah, another quote on the little side there is sort of just, don't give up, just keep persisting in what you do, and you'll eventually get there. Now we're doing it, as the slide is saying. We are now really maturing into a data-driven approach. I will personally not approve, not that anyone, I'll get back to the autonomy of my team, and I won't approve a test, but similarly, no, I don't need to approve tests to go live. We'll talk about that later, but every test now is required to be to have some nod, minimally a nod at least to any kind of sort of data-driven aspect to the test. We're also, and might be a call on its own right, but we are now moving from a product to a needs-based approach in talking to our customers. Many on the call here might have, bought a house, we've got a mortgage, but essentially you're not looking for a mortgage. You're looking at the need is there to have a house, and the mortgage would let you get there. Similarly, if you are doing, renovating the kitchen, it's sometimes people would do that on a credit card, and sometimes people would take up a loan. It's more around the needs than actually selling a product. And I think by targeting the need of customers as opposed to pushing products, you get a lot closer connection, and you get a different kind of trust and a different kind of behavior, both in the new to bank and existing to bank members. You can see now that the test volume is going down significantly. I think we just crossed the 800 line this year, so I'm expecting us to come in at about 840 or something by the end of the year. But it's less significant now because this data-driven approach, the machine learning aspect of it, the automated personalization is giving us a lot of insight as well. And the proportion of sort of conventional A/B testing to validate page designs and functions has been done. So all we have to do is to reaffirm some of the beliefs that we have on how people interact with the website. Moving on. So this is what we built. As I said, it started from 0 people in the team, like I guess most team does, but not of this size this late in the game in terms of digital. Initially, what we had was a flat structure. It's very hierarchical. It's very autonomous, and people are led. I'm not standing over anybody's shoulder. And people are relatively free to, well, not relatively, people are completely free to solve the challenges they have in their day-to-day the way that they want. If they want help, I'm always there. There's also, so in this scenario here, I'm the manager, and there's another lead that works very closely with me. And then we have a level of specialists, and we have analysts. In this case, analyst doesn't mean what you will probably jump to concluding. There's separate data teams that helps us with the analytical aspects of it. It's mainly a structure that names people of that career band an analyst. So that's roughly what we have. As I said, it was a flat structure before where everybody reported to me. There were some positives in that. There were some negatives in that, but we made the change about a year ago to have this structure also to give the specialist the learning and experience of managing people, and also having we'll call them analysts, looked after a little bit more closely than what I could do with the size of the team that we had. When it comes to team tasks, then this is slightly cleaned up a little bit. What I want to show with this table is that you can see the columns. So you have manager, you have S1, S2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and you have A, so that's for specialist, and then you have analyst. And this basically shows what people are working on. So the main difference is that you can see is typically the specialists will own what I call areas. And I could have included the areas. What the areas is the more the subjects that touches all of optimization. So one of the subjects could be UX. So we have our own SME UX person within the team, although we have plenty of UX resources outside the team. There's another analytics SME within the team that basically ensures that everybody is on the right and narrow. And similarly for strategy, for mobile, etc., etc. So the main difference is that specialists will typically own a area or an approach, or I struggle to find words for it, but I explained it through you, explained it as best as I could, and they basically work with all the analysts. And what you can see from this here is that an analyst will typically be optimization lead for a product. So this could be cards, it could be loans, it could be mortgages, it could be services, it could be anything whatsoever. So each of the analysts owns a product. They make the decision of what they want to do. They own the successes and the ups and downs of their products, and they are the ones getting the credit as well for the successes that they do. Which leaves me in the rather sad position of never actually being able to say I did anything, but I draw that into the enabling people to do the right thing, hopefully. You will also see from this sheet that you have the darker gray O is for owner, so they own these areas. The green is L for lead, and the orange is S for support. So you'll see that if you're a lead on a product or an area, you also have somebody in support. So this typically is how we do a little bit of development. So if somebody wants to learn something, either another product or UX or development or analytics, then and obviously these roles change not too frequently, but at least like once a year, we advise people move across. Again, it is people's themselves down to deciding whether or not they want to move or stay. So far, I haven't really had anyone that have been too miserable with the task they've been handed, and if they do, we move it around a little bit. So that's how we keep everybody busy in the team. So we have SMEs in the various key areas of optimization, and then at the lower level, with all the support we can give, we have the analysts being the optimization leads themselves. Building blocks. For me, key thing is to hire right, and I'll give a little bit more narrative to the exclamation or the brackets. My main key to hiring somebody is curiosity and personality. If I have a vacancy, which isn't often now, I'm happy to say, is I don't really want a know-it-all kind of person. I hope that makes sense to you guys. Basically, in my head, a know-it-all is people who are given signs that they will learn new ways differently, which is why I favor the sort of slightly lesser terminology of learn it all to be the right people. These are people that just, learn it all, and curiosity comes hand in hand. And basically people saying, being open to doing things a new way rather than the way that they always thought was the right thing. So for me, hire right. In my team now, so there's 17 people this minute. I would go as far as saying more than half of them came from a non-optimization background, but with a want to move into optimization. I always say that optimization, and I mean this obviously, is optimization is the best team to start, at least when you have the freedom and autonomy that we've been lucky enough to set up in my present company now, is that because you interact with everybody else. Optimization deals with development, with marketing, with design, with analytics, and even branch networks. If you're a bank, I mean, there's endless opportunities of going in there. So I've had 2 people in my team that I hired straight from branch, young people that have come in, and they made a massive difference. I've also hired 2 graduates into the team for the freshness that they bring, and then we have the sort of new to optimization people balanced off of the specialists, which would typically have sort of 3 years plus experience when they started. So for some of them, that's now they're in the 7th year of doing optimization. So for me, that's a key building block. I don't know why the slide's jumping around. So secure the right buy-in as well. As I mentioned at the start, for me, I would attribute it all to Sigi Koraman, who helped us set that up for UK and was, I don't know where we would have been if it wasn't for him. Establish that process and governance around making sure that we maintain the trust that we're given and the transparency around how we operate. I can't do a cheat view of my slides, so I don't know how many bullet points I added here. But then, as I said earlier, it's about enabling team. I said earlier that a lot of the people in my team started the optimization team without any background. What we do have spent a lot of effort on is that we have built our own internal optimization academy that we take our own new starters through, and anyone else for that matter who wants to do it. And that basically is a roughly 6-week period where you also get introduced to everyone in the team, because you do little projects with everyone in the team, touching on various aspects of optimization. You get introduced to stakeholders, etc., etc. And what we're finding is that even after just 6 weeks, but having followed this process, is that they come in and really swing in the bat from day one. Again, full ownership. I'm guessing that you people dialing in would have all levels of experience with optimization, but what myself and I'm sure most of you will agree to is that the key learnings comes from mistakes. So I am a advocate of people being allowed to make mistakes. It can sometimes be big mistakes, but usually they're quite small and innocent. And that's how we learn stuff. So I'm typically not picking up, at least in my first year, I wasn't too keen on picking up on what I personally thought was a bad or a slightly clumsy test. But it was just sort of go through it, put it live, and then review the data, and using that as learning so that your experience grows a lot. So for me, very long leash on the team members, and they're able to find their own path and grow. Prepared to do some stealth work. Yeah, a little pause on this, and it's a little out of rhythm with the rest of it, but I have chatted to quite a lot of people doing similar work for me in other companies as well. And what we find that is something that really works to get optimization off of the ground at the company itself for different products or for sections of your business is to do a little bit of stealth work. So what I mean is that don't try and get buy-in too excessively before you go ahead and do something. Just get down, do it. Hopefully you get a couple of wins, and then you go and have the conversation. Then you're more likely to get through. I've had companies, very big companies in the UK where we were chatting at an event fairly recently, and was giggling at the fact that we both felt that we are, almost a little bit naughtily doing that. So again, do it with the right intention. Maybe not take too much risk, but do it for the right reason, and then the results will come, and then you can ask for permission to keep doing what you do. Very few people will say no. And to be fair, this is also what we were doing with the person that supported us at the start. As I mentioned, most of the products, all products, didn't really know that we started testing. We don't need product to approve of tests that we do. We need obviously to be aware of marketing campaigns and any changes to pages, and we have an internal system for that. But we can technically and practically put live any test we want at any given stage. Obviously, if we start putting pink elephants on the pages, we would lose this quite quickly. But as long as we keep true and doing the right thing, it really builds up the trust. Give team members a long leash. As I said, I'm not standing over anybody's shoulder in doing their jobs. I got today as well. We have an internal sort of acknowledgement portal where if you've worked on a project with somebody else, they've done a very good job, you can give them sort of reward points. And I typically get one of those emails per week about one or more of my team members, which really makes me happy, but it really makes me believe that the way that we've structured this and the way that we are operating is the right one. I wouldn't want sort of 17 copies of me doing testing my way or anybody's way. I've hired very diverse people. They come from every corner of the globe with every interest that you can think of, and it works very well as a semi-dysfunctional family. But we just had our offsite a week before last, and it was very fun. Shout about your wins. Obviously, once you get operational and you have good wins, shout about it. I mentioned we have our internal Learning Hub. We also we call them gorilla postcards. We just put a little, imagine a postcard, just have enough details on it for people to grasp, understand, just walking past it. It's a good test, try and design something and just walk past and see if you get it. So if that is removing a button, adding a button, changing things from left to whatever it is that you've tested, sorry, silly examples, but then shout about it. We've had very good feedback on the gorilla cards. We also do other work pieces around storytelling where we help respectfully, using the word dumbing down what we do. We talk about Fisher pricing, our little posters and decks that we share internally so that people can understand it relatively easily. So those are, for me, the key building blocks of an optimization program. When I've seen optimization succeed, so again, one or more optimization drivers are present. What do I mean by drivers? For drivers, I mean something like, apart from myself, some of the early hires that I had to my team that basically stepped up to the plate and really took on the freedom and autonomy that had, and then took the ownership of creating what they thought would be the best way of solving a problem. So that means that we had several team members with their heads down that could go to different meetings and then work on different projects and just sort of help spread within the company what optimization was. Have the full operational autonomy. I'm repeating myself in most of this, but it goes to ownership and trust, and also the amount of effort that my team members put into this. It is quite humbling. Like I sometimes log on way outside work hours, and I'm always surprised to see team members logged in doing whatever they do. I always make sure to ask what they're doing and why it can't be done in the morning, because for me, living is about two key things. One is life itself, and then it's the work life that enables you to do whatever you want in your living time. And I'm saying that because I want to highlight that one of those two things is ultimately more important than the other. And for me, that is the living part of it. It's great to have fun at work and do the right thing, get praise, etc., etc. But for me, living has to be the key element of this. So, if you're in my team and have children, sick family members needing to travel, work remotely, it's all doable. I will trust you, and if it doesn't work, let's look at improving it the next time. If second time doesn't work, let's just agree not to try that again. But it's very much a trust game here. The structured approach I mentioned, hired with diversity, I've covered. Optimization aspirations. This is something that I like to add a little bit for talking point, but also the last point might surprise you a little bit. So for me, it's again repeating myself, gaining full trust in optimization and testing, so that you come into a meeting and people really understand that you are there for the right cause. We have a problem doing X. How can you help us? Well, we can suggest that you do it this way, and basically be a positive contributor to any conversation that happens there. Be an internal driver for positive change. We're in a company that still, less this year than previous years, are very siloed. So the fact that we can work with other teams and have demonstrable positive results from it is a plus for us. And we're seeing that what we are doing and how we're communicating the wins and those corporations are helping other teams sit down and chat to each other more as well. Fully utilize all the way available tools. That means, if there's anything that we have got, let's look at whatever it can do and making sure that we are aware of the capability of all the tools that we have. So, typically it's just a testing tool itself to understand what you can do, to understand best approaches and how you do those things. It's the analytics piece of it, understanding fully what analytics tools can do for you. And it's, in our case, it's also a DMP. To understand all the sort of finer segments a little bit more, and interlinking with the marketing teams to really get on board when they are doing their activities. I've covered that as well. I'm just looked at the clock. So this is my last point around the last point, which I always have a slightly lighter gray color or gray. My optimization aspiration is also to eliminate the need for an optimization team. What we're doing is not rocket science. If every product team, every product lead had optimization in mind, we're not going to be needed anymore. Obviously, that's putting things a little bit on edge, but it's genuinely what I mean. In my business, for example, I also add the same for the risk team. Everybody should be aware of the risks that we face and adhere to this. So for me, aspiration is that there one day will not be a dedicated optimization team at HSBC. So with that, sorry, I've rambled on for quite some time there. I hope you find stuff useful. So I'm going to hand back to Vipul. And yeah, are you there, Vipul?
Hey, Sigi, yes, I'm here. I'm back. I must say that was a very well designed presentation. And I really love the fact that a company of this scale, HSBC, they believe in the power and the effectiveness of experimentation and invest in a team to get the customer experience right. So that goes on to tell how important customer experience is to them. So that's really appreciable.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, which is also why, like I was saying, we moved away from product to needs in terms of focusing on giving the right content in front of people.
Right, right. That absolutely makes sense. So before I take up the questions, and there are plenty of them, so before I take up the question, I just wanted to highlight this point that you mentioned in one of your slides about the idea of an internal learning hub. I find it really, really great to have a central sort of learning repository wherein just anyone from the team, from anyone from the organization can come and look like what's happening, like what experiments have been run, what have been the result, and learn from them. So that's really a tremendous effort from you guys.
Yeah, no, thank you. And also we've taken that learning hub slightly further, and because obviously it's a little bit hard now as the volume of test is growing. It's becoming a little bit hard to maneuver. So we added the filters, as I was saying, but also what we've done now for about the last year and a little bit is that we also have a trophy cabinet. So if you don't want to go through, 2,000 tests, then at least you can look at the 2 to 3 tests every month that we put in the trophy cabinet. So that's a little bit easier to digest, a little bit more for the sort of senior leadership team of the bank to just go in and verify that they should keep us on the books.
Right, that's a great idea too. Great. So, in the interest of time, I'm sorry, people, I will have to pick up only a few questions, but I'll try to pick as many as I can. Right. So, the first question is coming from Simon, Simon Fisher. I'm sorry if I pronounced your name wrong, Simon. So, Simon is asking, do you use the learnings from human behavioral psychology when developing tests, or do you mostly use trial and error to find the optimal page setup?
It's a very good question. We try and go into the psychology aspect of it as well. We have 2 people out of the 17 people who studied psychology, one with a master's in it. So we're trying to use behavior. We're obviously aware that we are not selling shoes and scarves, and we are selling, the more meatier part of everybody's life. We don't want to, we want we don't want just to push credit cards to people and because it's not everyone will benefit from having one, but we do quite a lot of that. We do also have from time to time, I think every 2 months now, where we have labs where we try and get together the interested party within the company to look at how we use various biases and mental approaches to it, but more sort of in the trying to be the good guys as opposed to being bad guys. So every test plan that we have, we also include a section called, customer intent. So what is the intent of a test? So we one thing that we wouldn't do is just, keep pushing the credit card that we earn the most money from, but that we are conscious that we are pushing the credit card that is right for your needs and trying to flag that.
Right, makes sense. Hope you got your answer, Simon. The second question that I have, and the second and the third question, actually, Casper is asking, I'll club both of them together. So Casper is asking, uh, are you testing on both open and closed pages? And I mean by open and closed pages, he basically means the web pages that are public, and closed pages, basically the in-app pages, right? And how much of the IT is involved from a governance perspective when tests are going live? Do they need to approve the test?
No, They don't need to approve tests. We have full autonomy there. Obviously, it's transparent around what we test. So to answer Casper, we are doing by far more tests in what we call public websites, so the non-authenticated space, than we are doing in terms of authenticated space. We are gradually moving in there through journeys, which often starts in the public website and then moves into the authenticated space. We are launching a new platform for authenticated space in these weeks, actually. So we should be having our testing tool in there probably around February, March, to go at that with a little bit more focus.
Okay. And what about testing on both the open and closed pages?
Yeah, so we have, as I said, the majority of the tests we do is on open pages, as I called PWS, and increasingly more on authenticated space or closed pages. Other areas that we don't do much testing in or any testing in presently is mobile. We don't have our testing tools or any testing tool in the mobile app. So for me, it's sort of like a 4-piece pie where you have PWS, so call it open part, and then you have the journeys that takes you from open to closed, then you have closed or authenticated space, and then you have mobile app. So now we are sort of, in another slide I have internally, the PWS slide, piece of that pie is fully green, and journeys and PIB are both orange. And mobile red. We're not doing anything.
Okay, makes sense. Hope you got the answer, Casper. So the next question is, and it's an interesting one from Benjamin. So Benjamin is asking, for people who are not able to hire a testing team to jumpstart the program and instead will be doing it themselves in extra time, what tips would you give to So what tips would you give to wade through the politics and putting together a successful program?
Oh, that's a tough challenge. Sorry, Benjamin. I think that would require for yourself or somebody to be passionate about optimization and learning much. I wouldn't go to a website or blog saying, do 100 tips for blah, blah, blah. I would try and just ignore them a little bit. I mean, some of them would have value, but don't be blinded by the expectations of that. Try and understand what testing is about. Try and understand what is the question that you should ask in a test. So that is, what is the problem? One problem we have at the bank, for example, is that there are 2 separate journeys. We have new to bank and existing to bank, and a lot of existing to bank customers go to new to bank journeys, which is a lot longer, and we're seeing a high drop off. So understand what the problem is that you want to test, and understand, and then you'll probably find more than one hypotheses to remedying that, and then from each hypothesis you might have one or more tests to go and do that. But just be very clear on what you think you could test. I'm happy, Benjamin, reach out to me separately, and I can give more specific things. I do this just because I like sharing, as I said earlier, and I'll be happy to answer any specific questions.
Perfect. So yeah, Benjamin, if you really want to have more discussion around this topic, feel free to reach out to Sigi. He'll definitely give you some really quality insights there. The next question is from Daniel. Daniel is asking, how do you report on experiments to stakeholders? Do you create decks, dashboards, or let stakeholders see experiment overview screens?
We typically, as I said, we do most of our work is with UK, and at the start it was very granular. And then they basically, because the volumes of tests, I mean, we did 20, 30 tests a week wasn't uncommon, and then to do decks about it was just going to take too much time, and they just realized that eventually they trusted us. So we basically then in our learning hub take screenshots of everything. So our learning hub is pretty cool. Not cool looking and UX masterpiece. It's basically Confluence, and Confluence pulls in in the information from Jira, and that basically serves up everything in a sort of least resourceful kind of way, if that makes sense. So we do send out, we do have this guerrilla postcards, we send out newsletters, we do have a trophy wall, which we've just moved to a different part of the office, but that was a physical wall previously. We're looking to put that back up again. But yeah, just sharing in whatever means you can.
Right. That perfectly makes sense, Sigi. Thanks for sharing.
No
Right.
problem.
So the last two questions are from me. So your presentation got me really curious about two things. So the first thing is about team motivation, right? So you
Yeah.
mentioned that you have a team of 18 people, right? And currently there are 17 members there, but still 17 people is a lot of people to handle. So
Yeah.
when it comes to, and these people are experimenting with their assumptions, right? So what if
Yes.
their assumptions fail, right? So whatever they are trying to test, if that fails, or anything in any conflicting idea, comes up, how do you maintain the motivation levels within the team?
I think a lot of the motivation comes from that autonomy that they have, that they are pretty much free to do whatever they do. Keep in mind that we've got an extensive onboard training for people to join the team, and also what we do have is that. Part of the governance thing is that if you were Vipul, if you were the lead for credit cards, let's say, then to move forward, you would have to write up a test plan. That test plan is reviewed by a panel of your peers to see if that stands to reason. If it's something that if they have any comments to it, or if you're good to go. So that sort of gives you motivation. That also makes sure that people don't go too crazy, because pink elephants or turning pages upside down or whatever is not going to be accepted, obviously. But yeah, so there is processes that keep people in check. And also, as I said, people are there are a lot of we presently have a win rate of just over 40%, which I attribute to the quality of the present website. But whenever there are successes, I shout about it. So whenever it's the trophy wall have the name of the people that leads the product, the newsletter will have the same. So everyone feels that they are fully attributed and appreciated for the work that they do.
Right, that makes sense. The second thing is about, since you mentioned about making HSBC the optimization organization, right? So I'm really curious to know what are those impediments that you might face in creating a culture of experimentation?
Yeah, no, they are plentiful. I mean, typically that is either people or teams being a little bit protective of what they do. That could also be that people are working to tight deadlines and feel that they can't, that there's an added time to it, which frankly it isn't. And also, I think some people are, and we'll get them around, but I think some people feel like if they worked for something for 4 months and then launch the product, and then we come along the week following and run a couple of tests and lift the performance by 8 or 28%, then some people, I get the impression people feel like we're showing them up, which is what we need to change around completely, because we shouldn't be seen as we're in competition with any of the other internal teams, but we should really be there to help facilitate testing and experimentation.
Right, makes sense. Mm, just one last question. I'm cheating here. I said two, but there are three. So one last question is that um, do you, whenever you're running an experiment, whenever you're running a test, how important is the hypothesis step?
For me, it is very important. I believe it's not, it's saying that. So you must have it in my team, and in the learning hub, it must be there. I mean, like I said to the people in my team, just do every aspect of your job to the level that you'd be happy if our CEO or head of digital came and clicked into the learning hub and saw your test. If you met somebody in the lift, in the elevator, and with the head of digital and asked what you did, and then if you could take up a laptop and show them. I just want everyone in the team, to be proud of what they do and how that comes across. And in the end, each of them more important, they represent themselves more so than the team, but obviously it's the perception of what the team is comes through the interaction that external team members have with members of my team. So it's sort of a doubly mutual benefit of moving ahead.
Right. That makes sense. So part of the reason that I asked this question is because our next session on 18th of December is focused on the value of creating a clear hypothesis, right? So because we have seen a lot of organizations who just jump into testing part without actually having a hypothesis in place, right? So the next session on 18 December by Antonia Bogatu. She is the conversion optimization manager at Bitdefender. She will be discussing the importance of hypothesis and how it helps in running really good experiments. So yeah, I have dropped the link in the chat window for everyone. Just go to this link and register if you are interested in listening, Antonia. So yeah, that's it for today. Thanks again, Sigi, for a wonderful and a really insightful session. I enjoyed a lot, and I'm sure the audience must have loved it too. Thank you so much. Right,
No,
and
my pleasure.
Great. My pleasure too. So yeah, for all the attendees, don't forget to register for our next session next week on 18 December by Antonia Bogatu. She will be discussing the value of hypothesis and how to, and she'll be sharing example from the Bitdefender website itself. So yeah, it's going to be a great session like this one and like the previous one. So yeah, register and do attend. Thank you so much and have a great day, everyone.